Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jared Johnson, and we're in summer now, off season. No Texas Tech sports, none of the major sports are in season, and a lot of the talk has turned to, of course, recruiting's going on. We have plenty of that for you, but also the upcoming season, looking at the schedule as a whole, and the ESPN FPI, those kind of things, the Vegas over under for Texas Tech's season win total. And I thought this would be a perfect time to just break down the schedule and give my thoughts. And this is still, for me, I feel like it's a little early, even though we're under 70 days from the kickoff of the Joey McGuire era and Texas Tech's 2022 season. I'm going to get to the schedule, all that, but the last over-under I saw, or like the from Vegas, was 5.5 in terms of regular season win totals, and I think that's pretty good. Vegas usually gets this stuff right, and now a lot of people go, "Whoa, what about all this excitement with Joey McGuire? Now that they may not go to a bowl." Well, part of that is because of this difficult schedule. The Big 12 is expected to be tough in terms of, it's going to be a pretty much an even playing field. There's going to be a lot of good teams, maybe not great teams, Oklahoma, perhaps, of course. But other than that, good to really good teams in this conference. And then Texas Tech's non-conference is just tough. So I actually do think Texas Tech will be a little better overall as a team this year. Last year they won 7 games, counting the bowl game. Finished 7-6, beat Mississippi State in the Liberty Bowl, crushed Mississippi State, by the way. But this schedule is much tougher. So I feel like if Tech can just go to another bowl game and keep that going, it'll be a strong foundation. And then after that, I think expectations start to raise a little bit. Joey McGuire is recruiting like crazy. Him and his staff are recruiting like crazy. So at some point, definitely by 2024, it's like, okay, it needs to be eight wins is what we're thinking about. But right now, just get back to a bowl game. So let's see, if the Red Raiders can do that. Let's just break down the schedule. First off, they open up the season September 3rd at the Jones at home in Lubbock, 7 p.m. against Murray State. Now, I'm not going to give a lot of analysis for this, and I hope I don't regret this, but if Tech doesn't beat Murray State at home to open up the season, then what are we even talking about? So that should be a win. Then the Red Raiders host Houston. Of course, Tech beat Houston to open the season last year. I believe the Red Raiders have won the 4 last matchups. So Tech has really dominated this series as of late. Overall, Houston's had an advantage, but Tech is really taking care of Houston. And, Houston's had some good teams. They've beaten Oklahoma a couple of times in the last, decade or so. And they had a good year last year after playing Texas Tech. And they're expected to be good again this year. But Red Raiders at home against Houston, I personally think they should win that. Am I counting it as a win? No. Houston could beat Tech in Lubbock. I believe that. But for me, have somewhat of a handle on both teams. I think Tech should beat Houston at home. So 2-0 start, looking good. It gets really tough here. The Red Raiders go to NC State. This is Saturday, September 17th. By the way, the first 6 games are consecutive Saturdays in a row. Tech doesn't have a bye week till midway through the season. So, bam, bam, bam. September 3rd, Murray State. September 10th, Houston, and then at NC State on the 17th. And that one's scheduled to be on ESPN2. That's a 6 p.m. game, so it's a night game. NC State's expected to have one of its better teams in the past couple decades. And they're known as a tough place to play. So, this is a tough game. To me, you look at this as a loss for Texas Tech. We'll have to see. College football is a crazy sport. Anything can happen. Maybe they lose to Houston and go and shock NC State. They're on the road. Those kind of things happen in a college football season. But I'm giving them a 2-1 start, in non-conference. And then they open up Big 12 play at home against Texas. And look, there's a couple of things with Texas in terms of where Texas Tech is. For one, I know a lot of people are predicting Texas to win the Big 12, and I just don't see that. Maybe they win 7 or 8 games. They have a good team. Of course, it's Texas. They recruit well, although I think some of those recruiting rankings are way overrated. with Texas, just because a lot of these guys get bumps after Texas is in on them big. It's just kind of a thing with recruiting rankings. And it seems like Texas is always overrated going into the season, and then they let their fans down. But on the other hand, even bad Texas teams, including last year, that team crushed Tech in Austin. I mean, Tech couldn't stop them, and that team didn't even go to a bowl game. So, that's where we are with this. To me, even though it's at home, I gotta say, Texas probably wins that game just based on recent history. Kansas State. Speaking of recent history, man, right after playing Texas, they go to Kansas State, and Kansas State has a solid team. That's what Kansas State is. Solid program. Chris Klieman has done a really good job of keeping their identity at Kansas State, and even when Kansas State isn't good, they've handled Tech. They've beaten Tech. I don't have it down, but it's been several years in a row. I think 2015 was the last time Tech beat Kansas State. That was when DeAndre Washington, who was a first-team All-Big 12 running back, ran for over 200 yards at home on senior day against the Wildcats. So Kansas State has, until Tech can beat Kansas State, because there have been some bad Kansas State teams, including last year that beat Tech. They shut out Texas Tech in the second half in Lubbock. I can't pick the Red Raiders to beat Kansas State. Maybe Joey McGuire and this team, these players reverse that and end that losing streak, but I'm not prepared to say that right now. So that is a 2-3 start I have them on right now. All right, then at Oklahoma State. This looks like a loss. Oklahoma State's expected to be pretty good again. That's what they are under Mike Gundy. They're good. They're consistently good. And in Stillwater's tough. But Tech has beaten Oklahoma State in Stillwater, 3 or 4 years ago. They've beaten Oklahoma State twice in, I think, the last 4 matchups after the Cowboys just dominated the series. I think they won every game for like a decade or something. But here recently, Texas Tech has mixed it up with Oklahoma State. So, I think there's a possibility. Let me put it to you this way. Between Texas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State, I think they find a way to win one of those games. Now, which one of those games? Perhaps it's at Oklahoma State, which if I was Vegas, I would definitely have the Cowboys favored going to that game, knowing what I know in June. But I feel like this team, they have a veteran squad. They showed some resiliency last year. They beat some good teams last year. I think this squad will find a way to win one of those 3 games. My guess is Oklahoma State, but we'll have to see. All right, then they get a bye. Finally, in October, they get their bye. And then they host West Virginia. And Tech has had a lot of success against West Virginia. It's in Lubbock. I'm chalking that up as a win. So that's 4-3 through 7 games versus Baylor. Now, the defending Big 12 champs, very good program. Of course, the coaching staffs are familiar with each other. Joey McGuire coming over from Baylor, bringing some guys over from Baylor. It's in Waco. This game has been close here recently. I have to give it to the Bears because it's in Waco, defending Big 12 champs. All right, at TCU, I don't know what to think. Obviously, TCU has undergone a huge change here with Sonny Dykes taking over. So for Gary Patterson there in Fort Worth, we're going to have to see what that looks like. It's in Fort Worth. Now, Tech has beaten TCU in Fort Worth here recently. Since TCU's been in the Big 12, Tech has had some success in Fort Worth. Big fan, Red Raider fan base in the Metroplex, of course. So I expect a lot of Tech fans to be there. I'm not ready to say Tech beats TCU in Fort Worth, but I think they could. I really do. So that's one to watch. To me, that's a coin toss game as we stand in June. But if you're a TCU fan, you're probably saying, "Oh, we're going to crush Texas Tech." If you're Texas Tech, you're probably saying, "Hey, we can go in there and beat TCU in Fort Worth." So I get it. I get both sides of the argument. I'm going to say that's a win right now, and that gives Tech 5 wins. They have 3 more games to finish off the season versus Kansas at home. This is, obviously Tech has to win this game. You can't lose to Kansas if you want to go back to a bowl with the schedule. So, I do believe there's not a lot of analysis needed other than Kansas' new coach had them competitive. Of course, they beat Texas last year. They've shown some fight. So it scares me a little bit. I think Kansas could beat Tech, but it's in Lubbock. So I'm going to go with the Red Raiders. All right, at Iowa State. Now, of course, Texas Tech finally beat Iowa State last year. Garibay kicked that 62-yard field goal at the end of the game with the clock expiring for Texas Tech to upset Iowa State and become bowl eligible. It was a huge victory. That was after Iowa State had won every game against Tech in the Matt Campbell era leading up to that, I think 4 or 5 years. So that was a huge victory. Now it's back in Ames. Iowa State's probably going to be thinking about some revenge, at least some of the guys on the team, the coaching staff. So I'm not saying Tech's going to go into Ames and beat Iowa State this year with the Cyclones having revenge on their mind. So, and they packed that place. That's a tough place to play. So I think that's a loss. So I have Texas Tech at 6-5 there. Then versus Oklahoma. Some people are picking Tech to upset Oklahoma this year. I'm not saying it won't happen because it's in Lubbock and that helps. But just looking at it at face value, I gotta say Oklahoma wins. They've dominated the whole Big 12 for the most part, the better part of the last decade, and I expect Oklahoma to be good this year. For me, that's my pick to win the Big 12 this year. I know that's not really stepping out there or anything, but of course, Venables is there, new coaching staff and all that, so there are some changes there. But I think the talent wins out there in Norman. The Sooners probably take home the crown, reclaim the crown after Baylor winning it last year. And I think they beat Texas Tech in Lubbock to finish the regular season. So there it is, 6-6. That's how I see it. I consider it an accomplishment considering the schedule, which is difficult, very difficult this year. If you had another Florida International instead of NC State, hey, maybe 7 wins, But it's going to be a battle to get to 6 wins. I know the coaching staff and the players have higher expectations than that, as they should be. But just realistically, taking a look at the schedule, that's where I see the Red Raiders, again, in June. I reserve the right in August to say, you know what? No, I have a better handle on these teams. I have a better handle on this roster. This is my prediction. So look for my official prediction later this summer or right before the season kicks off. But as of right now, I see Texas Tech finishing 6-6 and going back to a bowl game. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.